Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal initially called my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
I say it every time because it creeps me out every time. It's creepy with that whisper.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Just off topic. What's creepier, the "it's working" or the 4 more years pause?
Okay. That's more creepy. However, the 4 more years pause is more disturbing.
Yeah.
How's that?
Okay, there we go.
All right. So that was President Joe Biden last summer touting his Bidenomics, that it's working. Now we're going to fast forward to now, and despite him still claiming his economy is thriving, the administration received a brutal some economic numbers after the GDP only rose by 1.6% compared to 3.4% last quarter. This while inflation, by the way, still remains elevated.
For more on this, we're going to welcome in former managing editor at the Forbes magazine, media strategist and host of the What's Bugging Me podcast, Dennis Neal, and president of Strollmark Business Development Consultants, Hilary Fordwich. Welcome to the show, both of you. Thank you for joining us. Dennis, start with you. Why did these numbers fall so short of expectations?
Well, you know what? I think the government money is beginning to run out. Let's remember that during COVID, the government gave out enough money, $11,500 to a family of 4 in just 13 months, and that tripled the median savings of America. Well, now they're starting to spend and run out. The Conference Board of the U.S. is projecting negative GDP growth in the second and third quarters, meaning the current quarter and the next one. And then the media will say, oh my gosh, 2 quarters in a row of negative growth. That means we're in recession. That's going to hurt Biden's chances. No president, I don't believe, at least in over 100 years, has ever been elected in a recession year.
Wow. That's great. That's not great for the American people.
But that was a good answer.
That is a really good,
I was going to say that's great insight. Hillary, in Biden's 25 budget proposal, Biden outlined his plan for a capital gains tax of, listen to this, 44.6%. That's the highest tax rate in over a century. What does this proposal mean for everyday Americans and businesses, and how likely are we to see that increase? I mean, that's a big number.
Well, pleasure to be back with you, Michael, and with Sarah. A couple of things here. They obviously have not heard of the expression, the more you tax of anything, the less you get of it. And it was shown, even presidents like Kennedy, think of JFK, he actually lowered taxes at the time. Obviously a Democrat today, he would be considered a Republican. Why? The economy boomed under Kennedy, but Reagan did the same, and that's why it was called Reaganomics. And from the point before, I just wanted to add, when Biden was doing his creepy whisper there, notice that clip you showed was from last summer. That's because we want to show our audience what he was saying about Bidenomics. Notice the administration isn't using it anymore. Why? Because Bidenomics is failing.
You know, these tax increases that are being proposed, understand that the budget for next year Biden's proposed is $7.2 trillion. We were at less than $5 trillion just a couple years ago. Now, what happens in business, though, is you're always looking forward. And so never mind that the economy right now is not very good. When you see that the president wants to increase capital gains tax up to 49%, increase the corporate tax rate by 25%, take a first tax that they just passed in the Inflation Reduction Act and quadruple it to 4% for buybacks, et cetera, when business sees you want to do that, business starts to pull its elbows in and get afraid instead of feeling the testosterone of capitalism and expansion. When Trump came in and said, I want to cut taxes, business got better instantly, even before the tax cuts had an effect, because they felt better.
And very, very quickly, can I just add a quick question on that? $7 trillion budget while inflation's rising, isn't that the opposite of what they should be doing, spending less money to curb inflation?
Because inflation is caused by nothing else other than more government money flooding into a market without a commensurate increase in goods to spend on it. And so that $7 trillion is going to keep inflation going higher and higher on top of that 30% increase we already had in goods. It hasn't gone down from before, so it's 3% on top of that 30%.
Speak about the increase in goods. Look, we've seen an increase in gas by almost 48%, electricity by 28.3%, and food by 21%, housing and rent 21% as well. Hilary, these types of increases, could be really crushing the average person here. What's your reaction?
Of course they do. And actually, what's most important is that the upcoming election shows always the same thing. Americans vote on pocketbook issues. Why? They may have their heart and they may care about other things. Obviously, the Democrats are trying to make abortion an issue, but people know what they're spending on their daily goods. I think it's really interesting when you see the volatile food numbers and gas prices are always stripped out of the core indexes. Why? Because they're supposed to be too volatile, but that's what Americans feel. And I always say every American feels them. The only exception to that are those like those on Capitol Hill and global elitists. Why? Because they have somebody else who fills their limousine or their car with gas. They don't actually feel it. But Americans feel pocketbook issues. They feel what's happening at the pump. Now, with regard, if I could just add on to this from the last section, with regard there to taxes, remember, whenever any American president threatens to raise the corporate tax rate like Biden is doing, think Ireland. Always think Ireland. Why are 96 American companies headquartered in Ireland? Because they always undercut our global corporate tax rate, so companies go there. We don't want more American companies having their headquarters in other countries. Why? Because then they don't pay their taxes in America, and we need them paying their taxes here, so that helps this economy, not the Irish economy.
We certainly do. Dennis Neal, Hilary Fordwich, thank you both so much for joining us.